we're really excited to share this presentation about not only the City Nature Challenge, but also how you can host a BioBlitz event. And it's really one of the things that the two of us have found is important to build community around nature. And we've done that by joining forces, BioBlitz.Club and Keep Coyote Creek Beautiful. And we just love getting people out in nature and seeing all the wonderful things that are there. As you can see in the slide, we've got naturalists who are and docents in the orange vests. And then we also have some of the nature visitors, our explorers. And then they come and check out the wonderful things that we have at the lakes and creek and other parks that we go to visit.
Okay, and I guess this is the time to say what a BioBlitz is. And some of you already participated in a BioBlitz, so you know, but for the rest of you, a BioBlitz is an event where we focus on finding and identifying as many species as possible in a specific area of a limited point of time. So when we do it, we usually go to a park in San Jose or in the South Bay, and we try to find as many species as we can within about 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Again, we're trying to encourage people to learn about nature together. So it's one thing to go out and explore on your own, which is great, but why not make it a social event? So we do that through our BioBlitzes, and that's one of the main ways that we get people together. So we started 8 years ago with 9 events, and we had about 400 attendees over the course of that year and 10 docents. And now we host 12 events every year. We have over 750 people who come on a regular basis in that year. And we've been building our cadre of docents. So we have over 30 of them now. We love exploring together. And you can see that there are a variety of people who come out from families, scouts, people come from companies even. We have students and adults, even grandparents with their grandkids, naturalists, people who specialize in various fields, and even hobbyists who just dabble in nature but want to share and learn more.
So yeah, so far, Deb and I have done 67 joint BioBlitz events since 2017, which has been such a wonderful journey. And you can see some of our favorite locations here. This is Alum Rock Park, which is part of the Coyote Creek watershed. And this is in Coyote Valley near the Anderson Visitor Center. And now I'd like to talk just a little bit about how I got started with these BioBlitz events. And for that, I would like to take you to Coyote Valley. So back in 2017, I was volunteering for Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society at the advocacy group. And at that point, I was creating a database about the different birds that live in Coyote Valley. And I worked on that for a long time using all sorts of resources that I could find online. But at some point, I realized that the next step would be to organize a BioBlitz in Coyote Valley, because not only that we could collect far more information that we already had from available resources, but we could also show people where Coyote Valley is. The idea was to use the data for advocacy, to explain why it's important to protect Coyote Valley and the birds that live there, but also all the other creatures. But it seemed to me that many people don't know where Coyote Valley is, or if they know where it is, maybe they don't know how to visit the place. So we organized our first BioBlitz event with Audubon Society, Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society in Coyote Valley back in 2017. But since then, I've had events in different sections of Coyote Valley with different groups. So you can see that now we have this nice spread of points in Coyote Valley, in addition to many other places that we've been. So a few years ago, we created the BioBlitz.Club website that was really helpful creating this little community of people. And it's a place where you can find information about all our future events. You could find information about other projects that I do, and you could sign up for all these things. In addition to future events and such, I'd like to show you this project. So this is an iNaturalist project, which means that it accumulates observations of specific categories. In this case, it's all the BioBlitzes that I've organized. And you can see that so far there are 64,000 observations of close to 3,000 species by over 1,600 observers, which, of course, many of them keep coming back and do more and more and more, but these are unique observers. Oh, and the number of events is actually 121. I've been partnering with different organizations. So as I mentioned, I started the events with Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society. And after a couple of events, I met Deb and realized that this is a great fit for both of us. So since then, we've been organizing all those many events together, in addition to events that I work with, where I collaborate with other groups. I'd like to talk a little bit about different BioBlitz formats. We use a specific format that we think is great for us. But every time someone approaches me and asks me how to organize a BioBlitz or asks me to help them organize their own event, my first question is always, what's the goal? What do you want to achieve? Because you could do a few different things. For example, if you're interested in the data, then you might get better results if you do a data-driven BioBlitz, which means that you could share some data in advance, you could recruit experts in different fields, you could divide your area into polygons. After the event, people would often share their results with their little community. These events could be closed to the public and only open to specific experts on invite only. The images here are from an event that I participated in, organized by Mid-Peninsula Open Space Preserve. This was a really fun event where we were grouped with other experts, and each group got their own little polygon that we were supposed to explore and document our observations using iNaturalist. Remind you, this used to be done on paper. The fact that we can use iNaturalist is wonderful because it's such a great platform for these events. You could do a species-specific BioBlitz event. So you could target specific organism or group of organisms, such as sudden oak death. It's a disease that attacks oaks, but it's pretty prevalent in the area. And often CNPS, California Native Plant Society, and others will organize a sudden oak death targeted event where they will teach people how to identify that species and then spread around and document that. You could have specific events targeting other species, of course. You might need to train your participants for that. And you can collect highly valuable data because, you know, if it's just one researcher, it's really difficult to cover a lot of area, but the power of community science is amazing, where you could have many volunteers doing the same job in different places over different periods of time. And then the model that we chose and adopted is the community-driven BioBlitz events, where our idea is to expose the public to a specific area, to teach them about that area and about the different organisms that live there, and why it's important, why we think it's important to protect that area. And we think that a BioBlitz is just the perfect event for that, because you get people out and you teach them about all these different species. You get this hands-on experience where people can look for different organisms and really get a feeling of the diversity of that area while actually collecting real data. So they all become community scientists. They collect real data that gets entered into iNaturalist. So it's not just on our phones, but it gets entered into this gigantic database with millions of observations shared with many, many other users. And we can go back and look at all those observations year after year, season after season. We often go back to the same locations and we can compare what we've found in the past. So Our goal is both to collect the data, but also to create a community. And the way we organize the events is that they are open to the public. We try to advertise as widely as possible and to include everyone as much as we can. The way we organize our events is that we have a group of docents, which often have an expertise or an interest in a specific group of organisms, or could be everything. And they lead small groups on a walk, which is about 2 hours, and show people how to use the app, how to document what they find, how to find creatures, because it's all about walking slowly, listening, looking around, and trying to view more than you would usually when you just, go for a walk on your own. Another thing we do is we try to cover as much space as possible. Sometimes we will send people to specific areas. Sometimes we try to just, cover as much as we can. And after the event, we share our insights, and we'll talk about that a little bit later.
I'm going to talk about how to host a BioBlitz, because one of the things our organization does really, really well is we know how to organize events. So to get started, we have a little checklist. And within that checklist, we create an iNaturalist project. So Merav will do that. And sometimes we need funding to do it if we're going to go out as an organization, and that helps to pay our staff. You can get grants from, for example, Valley Water if you're in San Jose, or maybe a business would be willing to sponsor your event if you find that you want to pay for advertising, or you have a space that you need to rent, maybe a park needs a permit. And that gets me to apply for permits if needed, which I'll talk about a little bit more. We also go about inviting our participants, including our docents, for those community events. And one of the questions that was posed by Brian was conducting outreach. How do we do that? And I'll get to that in a moment. Then we host the event. And then finally, we have post-event activities. And you can see on the right that this is our upcoming event on April 28th. And we have flyers and other social media, but at the bottom, you can see that we use a QR code. And those we found have been really great at helping to get people to register when we're hosting other events. And then you can also see a number of partners that we have at the bottom. So that's another thing that I'll talk a little bit more about as well, is just partnering with some other organizations. So once we've decided on a place that we want to go to, some parks require a permit. And to do that, we typically apply 4 to 6 weeks in advance for the city of San Jose or Santa Clara County Parks. And sometimes they request a fee for that, which can be small, $100 or $250, depending on where we're going. So I just wanted to make people aware of that, because it is something that you may have to do if you're going to host an event, especially if it's one that you're going to charge a fee for. But if you're just going to go out with a group of friends, you don't need to get a permit. You can just show up to a place and enjoy it. We happen to also partner with some of these agencies, such as the Santa Clara County Parks, and they help with the promotion. So to get the word out, we use a lot of different methods. We use social media, like most people, where we post a Facebook event and also share it in some of the groups that we participate in. There's a naturalist group. I went to West Valley College to get to learn more about interpretation. So I post our events on that group. We also have used Meetup and Nextdoor for some of them. There's volunteer match is another great way, because as Merav spoke about earlier, you can do it as a community service project. And then we have just friends and family. So we'll send messages to people and ask them to share it. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we partner with a park. So the one that's coming up at Almond and Quicksilver is with the Santa Clara County Parks. And so they'll post a flyer and put it in their list of events that are coming up. We've been lucky in that we've even had elected officials want to share what we're doing. So they'll put information about the event in a newsletter. So don't forget to them We also post in our personal iNaturalist journal posts about the upcoming events. Schools are a great way to get people to come. You would not believe how many families are looking for something like this to go and do together. And then libraries and other community groups are great ways to get the word out. So one of the things we do is share our events with, for example, the Sierra Club, and then they'll post it in their newsletter or they'll add it to their social media. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get the word out. A nice thing about the City Nature Challenge is that there are resources that as an organizer, we have access to. So since we're hosting an event, we have access to their media kit, their BioBlitz outreach information, graphics as well. So a lot of things that we can use that are created because we're one of the partners within the City Nature Challenge. So when the event day arrives, we want to get there early to set up. Typically, it's going to be warm and sunny, although we've had some rainy days, and we have a tent, but you don't have to be that elaborate. Just make sure that you greet people, welcome them to your event. And then we have, because we're hosting a group event, we typically have a waiver as an organization and also liability waivers for the parks and the organization as well as a photo release. When we start our events, we do a little introduction to talk about that particular locale, the particular event that we're hosting, and then we talk about safety because there are a few things that you want to keep an eye out for. Number one being poison oak, number two being ticks. And then if it's in the summer, we also talk about snakes and watching people's footing. We also during that time talk about iNaturalist, encourage people to join the iNaturalist project for that event. Since we create an Eventbrite listing, we usually, just like you've received information ahead of time, we'll include how to use iNaturalist. There's a video that Merav created. And we also send people the list of the information about the project so they can join that as well. And then we go out with our docents and make observations. And at the end, we regroup. We typically stand around and swap some stories of the coolest things that we saw. We also offer giveaways. Food is always a nice thing to offer people at the end. We also have stickers and these fabulous buttons that Merav makes of little critters. So if you come to one of our events, you'll see them and be able to get one for participating. We also offer community service hours. So for people to get those, we do ask them to make 10 valid observations. So no rabbits from like a white rabbit we've seen. We don't want people taking pictures of dogs, but really to take pictures and learn about what's out in nature. And once we finish hosting the event, then the back end work happens. We identify the observations, and then there's also some cleanup of the project's observations that are in there, such as the white rabbit that I mentioned, which would be something that we wouldn't want to have hanging in our list of observations. And then Merav oftentimes will write a journal post about the project. What did we see? What were some of the highlights? How many people came out? How many observations did we have? Where can people find more information about anything special that came out of that event? We like to post our results on social media. So again, the City Nature Challenge is asking people to do just that, is when you're participating in City Nature Challenge is to share what you're finding, anything cool that's out there, or maybe a picture of your group that went out to participate. Lots of opportunities to share via social media. So now Merav's going to do a little demo so you can see what it looks like in an iNaturalist project.
So this is our last shared BioBlitz in a place called Coyote Meadows last month. And this is what the project will look like, okay? So we'll have a little picture with the logos, and Then you can see how many observations we had, how many species, how many people help identify the observations, and our observers. And of course, we had more people participating, but not everyone is going to make observations. Then you have this little area here, and this is my favorite, actually, the map, where you can see how well we covered the area. You can't actually reach every spot in your site, but still pretty interesting. So this is the project page. From that, you could learn a bunch of things about how the project is actually set, such as we had a polygon for this specific area. In this case, it's actually 2 different polygons and a date. Okay, so every observation made during that date in that spot was entered into the project, regardless if people joined or didn't join the project. Okay, so everything would get there automatically. And you could change that according to your needs. One thing that Deb mentioned is identifying your observations. So from here, it would be really easy. You click on this little arrow, and then it shows you the options to identify observation, which if you click on that, it will take you to the next screen. Yes. Okay. So these are all the observations that haven't been identified to species level and verified by other users yet. And sometimes it's just because we can't identify them to species level. This is bacteria. So, this is as much as we know now. Maybe later someone else would find it and help us identify it further. But for now, this is the best I could do. And after each event, I try to go over every single observation that wasn't identified and do as much as I can. And sometimes I'll tag other people that I think might do better than I would, and maybe we'll be able to identify the observations further. So if I want to identify one of these things, I could click on the observation and I could enlarge it, look at the details. Unfortunately, I'm not a willow expert, so all I can say is, yes, this is willow. But if I knew more, then I could add the ID here, or I can use the computer vision and see what iNaturalist has to say. So I agree, it could be a royal willow, it could be red willow. I really don't know. But maybe one day, a willow expert will look at these observation and suggest some ID. Sometimes it takes a day or an hour, sometimes it takes a few weeks or even a few years, but some of these observations will eventually get identified, and it's kind of fun to get an observation identified a long time afterwards. But anyway, you could do that. You could actually filter, let's say we're talking about the City Nature Challenge, you want to help the San Francisco Bay area. So what could you do? If you can't see anything here that you could identify, maybe you could filter the results into something more specific. So I'm pretty good with insects. So I could just filter all the insects, okay? And yeah, and I could look at them and see if I could help anyone else. I could also filter them to place. So if we're talking about a City Nature Challenge or something like that, a large area, then I could maybe narrow it down to my county or my city or something like that if I type something here in place, okay? And one more thing, you could choose the unknowns, okay? So these are things that weren't identified at all. And yeah, this is something I need to go back and clean, because I tried to fix all these issues, okay? So it will at least have something on it, like a plant, a vascular plant. I think I know what this one is, so I can add that later. I want to show you one more thing when we go back to the project. So let's go back to our project page. The journal, okay? So every project has its own journal. And at the end of the event, I usually try to publish a journal post. So this is my journal post with BioBlitz results. This is what we found. We saw some interesting birds. We saw some interesting bugs. We saw this and that. And we also share that with our participants. But everyone who joined the project will get a notification on iNaturalist about this journal post. And you could add more journal posts. So depending on your project, people would sometimes write a lot of journal posts. It's a good way to communicate with the people that care about this project. Let's say I'm going back to Coyote Meadows and I want to target, these 22 people that signed up for this, join this project. I can write a new journal post, just saying, oh, we have a new BioBlitz here, next month, please join us, blah, blah, here's the information. So joining a project is pretty useful for that.
Well, thanks for going over that. Hopefully people will get a good sense of how to use a project and how to help with identification. So even if you can't come out for one of the events that we'll show you in a moment, we hope that you can help with identification, as Merav said. And it's just really fascinating to see what people find from all over. So let's talk a little bit about ways to connect with other groups. So through Cal Academy, we had the website earlier, you can find or add your event. So if you on the next week are going to create an event, let Cal Academy know. And then there's the Global City Nature Challenge website to see what's happening around the world. So if you're in a different locale or you know friends who live in other countries, you can let them know that they can participate and go to the City Nature Challenge website to find a location that they can participate in as a project, or they can just go out there and do it themselves. And as Merav said, it will automatically be added for those dates that they're automatically added to the City Nature Challenge for the dates in which the observations were made. A couple of other examples are the Sierra Club or Audubon Society or the California Native Plant Society. Those are all great organizations that we partner with, but you can also see if they have events, or in the future, just to create a BioBlitz event, you can contact your local ones and see if they're interested in partnering with you. And something that I heard when I was on the City Nature Challenge Bay Area call a couple of weeks ago was that the San Francisco libraries, a number of them were also going to be hosting BioBlitz events right in the library parks, the parks next to the libraries, which I thought was a really keen idea. The other thing is there's the SciStarter, which is a US list of different organizations that also participate in BioBlitz. So there's lots of ways that you can either create your own, or if you want to partner with someone else and tell them it's a great idea, like Merav with the Audubon Society is like, hey, this is a great idea. Would you like to do it with us?